You sneaky. You're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Come on. Come on. Really?
Do you smoke crack cocaine?
Exactly.
Let's give the people what they came for.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
Ready? Are you ready? Get them out of here! Get them out of here! Get the hell out of here!
Enough with the woke shit!
So the answer to that is to stop being stupid.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Get your special sock out, nerds. It's gonna get good.
Is the federal government stealing from us? Are they sabotaging our industry? Are they taking us down the path to communism? Are they censoring us? Are they stealing our guns from us? Come on, let's go.
Let's fucking go.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Welcome to The Forge here on Monday nights. Man, what a show we got lined up for you guys tonight. It's going to be a great show. We have a lot to talk about. The most Albertan lawyer in the world, Keith Wilson, is going to be here tonight answering your questions about Alberta independence from one of the greatest constitutional lawyers in the province. I hope you guys are looking forward to that. I definitely am. I know I get giddy like a schoolgirl anytime Keith Wilson wants to come on. Not only do I consider him a very close friend, but he's just so knowledgeable. I definitely think that when it comes time to pick a leader in this movement, Keith is going to be forced. We're going to force him into this, folks. He's going to have no option. I hope you guys are having a good week. We got a lot to talk about. We couldn't have a show, though, without bringing in my hetero life mate, Mike. How are you, Mike?
Hey, how's it going? Enjoying the weather up here in Grand Prairie. I hope everyone's excited. We got a good show planned. I'm pretty excited about this. Talk to Keith. I hope everyone's doing good there in YouTube world. Let's first of all, guys, share the show with your friends. Smash that like button. We got to get out there. The censors have been hitting the channel pretty hard this week, so definitely need to. Views
are getting smothered on all Canadian platform politic channels right now, folks. I don't know if you've noticed the Jasmine Lanes, the Moose on the Looses. The view counts aren't as high as they used to be, and it's not only because YouTube changed things. I think they're getting ready for C9. I think they're maybe early prepping C9. We're gonna see how things go. Let's before we get into tonight's show, a lot of people, I see it already in the chat. We're gonna get a roll call going on, but just before we get that roll call going on, a lot of people are asking, "Hey, Derek, how can I ask Keith Wilson a question tonight?" What we'll do for starters is, what I will say is, we love our veterans here on the channel. You guys know we've been doing the Alberta shirts, that we've been gifting revenues from the Alberta shirts to our veterans. So I'll tell you what we'll do tonight to raise more for our veterans, all super chat questions will take priority. We'll still answer some questions, so it's fair from those who don't give super chats. But if you love our vets, folks, the super chat questions will take priority, and that way our vets get something back in return. That way, some people who say, "Hey, you didn't read my question, you didn't answer my question," if you love our vets, there's how you get it answered. I think it's a great way to go through it. Let's get a good old-fashioned roll call going on, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know where you're watching from. If it's your first time here, let me know. We got Mark coming in from Grand Prairie. We got Will coming in from Pueblo, Colorado. Nice to see you here. We got Monica coming in from Nova Scotia. Lauren's coming in from Gunn. Delphine's coming in from Fort Mac. It's good to have you in here. We got Bad Cop coming in from Peace River. Great to have you here as well. What what do we got here? What do we got? Rob coming in from Red Deer. We got Tracy, Digger and Tracy coming in from Rocky View County. Let's go. Good to have you in here. Nelson Cade's coming in from New Brunswick. Rob, I think I mentioned Rob in from Red Deer. Hit me one more time coming in from Lloyd. We got Lynn coming in from Calgary. Jeanette coming in from Laughlin, Nevada. Great to have you here. John's coming in from Rimby as well. Miss Titanfall coming in once again from Nashville, Tennessee. Looking forward to wearing my Alberta Independence shirt. She won the Alberta Independence shirt last week. Congratulations to Carrie on that one. I can't wait for Americans to represent Alberta. Chris is coming in from Airdrie. Mystical is still live from the roof. Pants optional. Please don't scare the neighbors. It's good to have you here. 77 Just Jack coming in from Calgary. Good to have you in here. Amen's coming from Edmonton as well. We got Haley and John coming from Cochrane. Andrea's coming in from Calgary. Welcome in. David Brewer's coming in from Springfield. Welcome in. It's good to have you here. Darren's joining us from good old Spruce Grove. I've never heard of it. I don't know where it is, but hey, Spruce Grove, good to have you in here. We got C. Bruce coming in from Edmundchuk. Good to have you. Berta Girls coming in from McGrath, Alberta. Board Canadian coming in from Grand Metropolis of Smith. It's great to have you as well. Somebody, I don't know who, is joining us from Red Deer, but it's good to have you in here as well. Drobert's coming in from Chicago, checking in. We've got Akubesh coming in from Minnesota. I don't know if you guys have heard it before. I don't know if you guys have heard me say this. I love our American viewers. I think you guys are wonderful. You guys are American viewers. You're going to make America great again. It's wonderful. It's good to have you guys in here. Irritated Canadians coming in from the Yukon. Matt is joining us from the undisclosed bunker in Interlake, Manitoba. Ladies and gents, I got to get caught up in the chat. We have a lot to get underway, and then we're bringing in the most Albertan lawyer in the world, Keith Wilson. I can't wait to have him in here. God, I'm giddy. One honorable mention to get out of the way is Simeon coming in as a member for 4 months. It's great to have you in here. I think it's going to be a great chat with Keith. We will not be answering the troll questions. To the trolls, well, we only got one message tonight.
Go ahead and call your dads, tell them about your alternative lifestyle as a gay communist, and then who knows, maybe eat a lollipop. I don't know what flamers do with their time, but I'd imagine it's something along those lines.
I would think it's something along those lines. Guys, great to have you in here. Mike, we got honorary mentions to get out of the way as well for the week. I think we've got a douche of the week this week. Who's on deck for the douche of the week?
All right, guys, I'm going to pop this up real quick just because we got Keith waiting in the lobby. So first things first, I just want to do a shout out to all the canvassers who are out there this weekend doing beautiful work down in my beloved swamp of Beaver County. These fine gentlemen and ladies that were out there. It was good stuff. All right, guys, this week, I guess it's time to get to everyone's favorite segment. Let's do it.
Douche of the week. Here we go.
Come on. Really?
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
That's what we need to do is support each other.
Douche of the week.
All right, guys, it's everyone's favorite segment on the Monday show. It's the douche of the week. First things first, we had great honorable mentions. Thanks again to everybody who put their nominees in this week. Mainly this week was personal for me. First things I want to talk about, honorable mention, was the stupid spaceport that was going to get created.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, so Spaceport Nova Scotia just got $200 million from D&D, while Newfoundland launched its site to compare defense dollars. At the end of the day, $200 million will barely get you the concrete for your project. This to me is a giant money laundering scheme of some kind, or a big scam, or whatever. At the end of the day, nothing's going to get launched. And I mean, there's a reason why everybody uses SpaceX. Okay, so that is honorable mention this week. But no, this week, the title will go to Derek, your good buddy.
What? My friend?
Gary.
Oh, it's Gary.
It's Big Gary.
Why could Gary be in?
Why bring the gun to me and then I give you $25 gift card to Tim Horton?
Do not redeem it! Do not redeem it! Do not redeem it! Why you redeem it?
Oh no, Gary! What's Gary doing?
Yeah, it's exactly because of the redeeming. So I had to struggle through his presser today. So at the end of the day, feds say more than 51,000 firearms reported as compensation program nears close. At the end of the day, people, you got 2.4 million PAL owners in Canada, so that's about 5% of the population. And since 2018, there's over 200,000, probably way more, that are on this, that were on that prohibited list, and then everything changed from there. So at the end of the day, this entire big government scheme of trying to buy back your own property completely utter failure. No one's going to give it up. No one's going to redeem. There will be no $25 gift cards for Tim Hortons, nothing like that. And I had to sit there and watch Natalie Provost, MP, sit there and basically had kind of a cry session that we needed to get these assault-style firearms, whatever the hell that is, out of the streets. And again, in pushing this. And for most of you people that listen to this, probably good old-fashioned gun owners, probably got this email this week. Final reminder notice to individual firearms owners regarding the assault-style firearms compensation program. Failure to dispose or permanently deactivate your prohibited firearms by October 30th, 2026 places you at risk of losing your possession and acquisition license and criminal liability. So at the end of the day, if you do not redeem, they will make you essentially a criminal. You'll lose your license. And again, to me, this is one more step closer to totalitarianism. And this is why we need to get the hell out of Canada for multiple reasons. But for one, I like keeping my stuff. So for that, like Gary, stuff. And you're probably going to go after the SKS next. But for that, Gary, you are this week's douche of the week. That's Mike approved, Derek approved. I know Keith is listening, so I guarantee you it's his approved too. And for that, we'll go.
Well, don't speak on Keith's behalf. That's kind of
guarantee you he's down with this.
Listen, he's a lawyer, and let me tell you something. You offend Keith, you can't afford him. I can tell you that right now. You don't want to step over those lines.
Bring him up.
Let's not waste any more time, guys. We gotta keep it real here on the channel because usually we have guests, and I love our guests, but there are none higher than my good friend and the most Albertan lawyer in the world, Keith Wilson, KC. Keith, welcome to the channel. How are you? Good to have you here.
I'm good. Nice to see both of you.
It's good to have you back. Listen, we're gonna allow some viewers to ask you some questions today. I know there's a lot going on about independence. I know we'll let you chat a little bit about a video you brought out recently because you were talking about how the question will appear on its own separate piece of paper or its own ballot. I want to clarify that for viewers. But as we get started, maybe I'll kick things off. I kind of have a two-parter question. Maybe you can kind of combine it into one question. A lot of people are saying that Mark Carney could, by chance, put a stop based on the Clarity Act to the vote for Alberta independence as we move along once the signatures are even garnered. But alongside, we also had a video earlier today showing a CBC clip saying that regardless of the outcome, and we've talked about this many times, regardless of the outcome of votes, let's say there's 60% of Albertans vote in favor of leaving Alberta, that the Canadian government doesn't necessarily have to come to the table and negotiate. They could simply say, we don't want to, and Albertans have to basically get permission in order to leave. How does this work moving forward?
Well, I guess we could kind of hope that happens and just see why. Canada's unique. I've talked about this many times. We're the only democracy in the developed world where our Supreme Court has laid out a legal pathway for any province to become independent, to go their own. And the decision of the Supreme Court of Canada that deals with that is the 1998 succession reference decision. And it obligates the federal government and the other impacted parties, which would be the provinces and First Nations in Treaty 6, 7, and 8, to come to the table and enter into good faith negotiations as to the terms upon which Alberta will leave and the terms upon which Alberta is going to continue to have trade and other relationships with the rest of Canada. So the Supreme Court of Canada, though, was clear that the parties have to enter into good faith negotiations and they're under a positive legal duty to do so. Well, what happens if they don't? What happens if the federal government, the Liberals under Carney, do not enter into good faith negotiations, or any of the other parties for that matter? Well, that's where you need to turn to paragraph 155 of the Supreme Court of Canada decision that explains that their decision is assuming there'll be good faith negotiations, but recognize that that's not a certainty and that it's possible there may not be good faith negotiations. So what happens then? And that's where they talk about it doesn't preclude a unilateral declaration of independence. So barrier that we've had in the past to that is what other country would recognize internationally a declaration of independence of Alberta after a successful referendum and a breakdown in negotiations. Normally, the United States have always signaled back during the two other attempts from Quebec that they're not using Quebec if they vote to leave. And here in 2025, in September, Mark Carney, without running it through the House of Commons or anything else, remember what he did? He announced that the government of Canada is recognizing the unilateral declaration of independence of the state of Palestine, despite that, in fact, it had no borders. So Carney's refreshed and renewed this international concept that other nation states can give recognition when the people of a region express their free will and decide they want to become an independent nation. So that's my answer, is that the Supreme Court of Canada identified this in their decision. And my hope is that the federal government will enter into good faith negotiations. And if they fail to do so, they do so at their peril, because we have an option, which is a unilateral declaration. It's obvious that it's in the Americans' interests. They don't like what Carney's doing. They're not very happy with Ford. And they see the value, unlike Ottawa, unlike the rest of Canada, the Americans see the value in what Alberta brings. So I'm sure they'll recognize us. And then there's probably, 15 or 20 other countries that will immediately follow suit. The second one's going to be Israel because of what Carney did there outrageously with his unilateral recognition of Palestine. Then we'll have, Argentina and El Salvador and Poland and probably Japan and maybe Italy. And on it will go. So that's my answer. I don't lose any sleep over that at all.
Sounds good. Now, as we kind of lead into the viewer questions, you spoke recently on a video, because a lot of people, and I see it on this channel in the comments all the time, that we've heard from Bruce Party, we've heard from others that say, Danielle Smith is muddying the waters with the independence question by introducing several other questions on a ballot. I believe it's 8 or 9 questions as we move into October that could essentially overturn the question of independence or how clear a question for independence is. And I know you recently talked about it going on a single ballot. Many people are skeptical that, should I fill out the entire ballot if we go to the box? Do I only answer the question on separation? Can they do this? Can they overturn separation? Maybe just break it down for everybody as to where things are headed as we move towards October and what this means for the question on independence.
Sure. I mean, my starting point is, would I have rather that the Smith government didn't bring in 9 other questions in addition to the independence question? Sure, of course I do. But we're not going to get perfection at every stage. We're going to have to continue to deal with the cards that are presented to us and still win. We're going to have to be agile and adapt. And so one of the concerns that Professor Party's raised, and I've spoken with him and he's responded to me as well, is that by having other questions on the ballot could create an excuse for the federal government to take the position that the vote wasn't sufficiently clear. And I think legally that's wrong, because the Clarity Act requires the House of Commons to assess the clarity of a referendum question on independence. So if the question isn't about independence, the Clarity Act doesn't apply to it. The Clarity Act does not apply to all questions that provinces put to votes in referendums. It only applies to an independent question, a question on succession and independence. The Premier confirmed recently at a public event that when the ballot is set up, and when you go and vote in a municipal election, you get stacks of ballots, and you've got one for mayor or your reeve, you've got one for councillors, and then another one for trustees for the Catholic School Board and trustees for the Public School Board, and there might be a plebiscite or question about a rec center or a bridge or park or something. So multiple votes at a single voting session is normal. That doesn't disqualify anything. The Premier confirmed that the independence question will be on a standalone ballot. So it'll have only one question on it. And it will be the first one in the stack.
Okay,
so
so
my
that is
view
confirmed.
is you be really efficient with your time, because that's how Albertans are. You go into the booth, you vote yes for independence, and you don't even bother with the other ones, right? And I want to talk more about why that's important in a minute. So I don't believe that it would provide a legal basis for the federal government to rule that there's a non-compliance with the Clarity Act. The question itself, so here's how we came up with the question, because you might remember that the question that Alberta Prosperity Project had as the proposed referendum question was different than the one that Mitch Sylvester and Stay Free Alberta have. And I was involved in this most recent incarnation of the question. So here's how they assess the clarity of the question. This is the House of Commons assessing whether or not it's a clear expression of a clear majority on a clear question to become independent. And they lay out, I'll read it here. You'll get a chuckle out of this, hopefully. There's suffer through this legalese, but it's important. In considering the clarity of a referendum question, the House of Commons shall consider whether the question would result in a clear expression of the will of the population of a province, get ready for it, on whether the province should cease to be part of Canada and become an independent state. So the legal test is whether or not the question is sufficiently clear on whether the province should cease to be part of Canada and become an independent state. Does anybody know off the top of their head what the Stay Free Alberta question is?
It's the same thing.
Well, pretty much the exact same thing.
It's those words.
Smart. Yeah.
It's, should Alberta cease to be part of Canada to become an independent state? In other words, we took the legal test for clarity and made it our question. The only change we made was it has and become, A-N-D, which is conjunctive, which could imply it's two questions. So to remove that argument, we removed it with the word to. So it reads, should Alberta cease to be part of Canada to become an independent state? It's a rephrasing precisely, but for one word, of the legal test of clarity. So if they come out and say, well, it's not clear, I mean, come on. That will be an example of bad faith.
Yeah, you're not going to get more clear than that. And there was a question mark. So I don't know, maybe they'll get
to
that.
Exactly. So what's interesting, though, is these other questions illustrate to me, and I hopefully in time to all Albertans, why independence is the only path forward. You know, none of these other questions that we've been asked that they're putting forward. And again, I just, whoever came up with these questions, they're not good questions. There's some of them are okay, but most of them, like, I'll give you an example. Okay. One of them is abolish the Senate. Well, I mean, that's like saying, you know, if Mrs. Fringe says, Derek, we're going to have a new kitchen policy. Our kitchen policy is to throw out moldy bread. I mean, you know, like the Senate doesn't do anything. So getting rid of a Senate that doesn't do anything is not going to solve the problems of equalization. It's not going to solve the catch and release criminal law problems. It's not going to solve the reckless out of control spending that's driving up inflation and making life and fun affordable for our kids and grandkids and us, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to deal with any of those core issues. So yeah, sure, I would support that, because I've always pointed out the Senate never does anything except waste taxpayer money and engage in theater. So when I look at each of the questions, I say to myself, what is fundamentally wrong with Canada? And why does it make so much sense for Alberta to leave? And do any of these questions reverse that? And the answer is absolutely clear with each and every one of them. They fundamentally will not change our ability to develop, increase our ability to develop our resources. None of these questions, if they're voted upon, will cause any change in the structure we have of Canada, which means all of the political powers in the East and they get to decide what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. And if we want to do anything, we got to go to them with sacks more money, full of more money, and on bended knee and beg. And most times they say no. They laugh and mock at us, right? Even Polyev. So that's my long answer to your question.
Great. Now let's get on to primarily some of the viewers. They've always had questions. They've always said, I never make it to any of these town halls. I can't get them answered. And I said, what better way to do it than with Keith here? Just a reminder, folks, I'm going to start throwing some of these questions into Keith. Super chat questions will take priority. Again, we're donating all super chats to our veterans tonight. That way people can't feel that they were ignored or maybe their questions didn't get asked. If you love our vets, this is the best way to answer. Let's get a look at Real Steve Jensen's first question. $20 super chat. Thank you so much. For Keith Wilson, Mitch Sylvester indicated the independence question would be on a separate sheet on top of the other questions. Without spoiling the ballot, should we vote on the other questions or can we just leave them blank?
You can leave them blank.
Yeah, that's not considered a spoiled ballot.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, too easy.
Okay. There we go. Too easy. Well, it has been an honest, like a lot of people have been wondering, I guess the declaration that it's going to be on a separate piece of paper wouldn't necessarily spoil the ballot. But I've always said you should answer them anyways. So it's good to know because, all paths lead to independence anyways, but good to have it out there. What do we have here? Simeon coming in with a $20 super chat. Hi, Mr. Wilson. Great to have you here. Would Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI be part of the negotiations after we become independent? And would they negotiate in good faith, knowing they will lose 20% of their GDP?
It's a rhetorical question. And it's 20% of the revenue, provincial revenue. So, the reality of equalization is, $47 billion more. If you take all the taxes, it still amazes me the number of people from Ontario that don't get this, or the Lukasic forever Canadian emotional people. They don't understand how this works. I love the line where they say, if you become independent, you're not going to get transfer payments from Ottawa. And we're like, oh God, you don't get this. We send the money to Ottawa. Ottawa keeps 47 billion of it, even after they've given us, back our little share. So we would be $47 billion ahead. And it's 20% of the budgets of Manitoba, PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick essentially come from that money, as well as a large amount that goes to Quebec, but it's not just Quebec. And so, that's a thing. I've had that discussion with people when they say, well, do you think the other provinces are going to come to the table in good faith? And I say, well, if you're one of those provinces that's going to lose 20% of your revenue, I think you're going to try and do something to scuttle the deal. Hopefully not, but you have to assume they will. What's doubly remarkable for us and frustrating for Albertans is not only do we send that money to them and prop up their economy and allow them to deliver services, then they vote in governments that put in oppressive policies to harm Alberta. Like, we're just so done with this. This is all completely self-inflicted by Albertans continuing to agree to live under this system. We have a path forward. It's legal. It's called independence. We'll still be able to have bilateral trade relationships with the rest of Canada. We can have cooperation agreements, but we're going to do it on our terms, and we're going to do it from a position of strength.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
LL Cool G asks, when Carney gets his majority government, can he make policies to strip premiers from making provincial decisions? It was stated that this was his intent to stop Alberta from getting to a referendum. Thanks for your time.
Well, he can't interfere with the ability of the Alberta legislature to pass laws relating to a referendum. That's clearly within their jurisdiction. And so, no, I'm not concerned about Carney doing that, whether he has a majority or not. What I am concerned about is the federal Liberals continuing to ignore the Constitution and make laws that are harmful to Alberta directly and indirectly. So the Bill C-69, the Impact Assessment Act, is a gross intrusion into provincial jurisdiction. And even though they were taken to court, the Alberta government took the federal government to court and were successful, all the federal government did was make a few tweaks, and the law is still a massive unconstitutional intrusion into Alberta jurisdiction. And it's continuing to have this chilling effect. It's continuing to drive away from investment unless you get chosen by King Carney, the king, to go on his magical list of major projects. Unless you're chosen and can appease King Carney, if you've got a project that's only $100 million and only going to create 2,000 jobs, well, that doesn't rank. It's got to be billions because he's got to be impressive. You know, he's being a banker and all. So we already have a situation where the federal government on a routine basis brings in laws that interfere with provincial jurisdiction. Another one is the plastics ban. The federal government, under the Constitution, in my view, has no authority whatsoever to decide whether or not I get a plastic straw or a plastic bag at a grocery store. It's just so extremely absurd what we've got going on, where you walk into the stores here in Alberta and you go, oh, I forgot those stupid cloth bags again. And you buy another one to add to your collection. And we know environmentally the plastic bags was way better for the environment than this virtue signaling nonsense. And we all put up with it, but we won't have to in an independent Alberta. And the other one I would mention is, yes, that's one of my litmus tests, like, for sanity, is when we can go into a store with just our wallet in our hands and leave with like bags that are so efficient you can actually hook them onto your fingers and carry 10 of them, and then you get to reuse them, you know, when you send your kids to the swimming pool and say, hey, put your wet swimming suit in this before you put it in your backpack, and all the other things we used to do with these bags before the eco nuts showed up.
Use it for our garbage in the bathroom. Like,
yes,
it's, you know what, revolutions have been fought for less. So I 100% believe you on this.
I love it when you go through a drive-through in Edmonton and they ask you if you want a bag. Sometimes just for fun, I say no. No, just hand it to me one at a time. I'll be here for 5 minutes.
We don't do it too often, but when we took the kids on
back for this one. Okay, all right. Like, this is just so stupid.
We went through with the kids and they asked, did you want a bag? And I forgot that Edmonton did that because we don't usually do it very often. And when we were headed for the airport, we stopped to get the kids something to eat, and they said, do you want a bag? And I said, no. And in fact, when I pull up, if you could just take the drink and just pour it in my hands, I don't even want it in the cup. Just save the cup and pour it straight in my hand. And the guy looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, well,
I'm sorry. It's like the crummy, like, clear bucket they give to you. Is like, here, grab your food out of this dirty bucket that everyone else's food is in.
Yeah,
I can't.
Unbelievable.
This is why I don't eat fast food in Edmonton anymore. I stay in Sherwood Park.
Hey, if anything, it's keeping people healthy, right?
Yeah.
That's
okay. Let's, man. Saving the environment.
Let's jump on to Teresa. $100 question. Thank you so much for our vets. Hey, Keith, I know Mitch has asked that all of our petition sheets be sent to him by March 30th, but we can still keep collecting signatures. If the courts rule against us in April, will the signatures collected to that date of the court decision still be counted?
Well, there's a few things there. So we have a situation where a few of the chiefs from a few of the First Nations have brought a frivolous, vexatious, and pure nonsensical legal challenge. An absolutely absurd, stupid legal challenge. It's just remarkable that the lawyers even signed the pleadings. So why do I say that? Well, first of all, petitioning governments is one of the oldest forms of democracy. Research it. It's one of the oldest forms of democracy. And so for the First Nations to say we can't exercise that fundamental democratic right actually is a little bit on the offensive side. It's just ridiculous. But what's their fear? Their fear is that somehow by you signing a signature sheet saying you want to vote for the right to vote on independence, not even to vote for it. You could decide to vote no, but you just want to have the right to have a referendum. They're saying that that somehow violates their treaties. That is patent nonsense. Pure, absolute nonsense. Why do I say that? Because if Alberta, so each First Nation member gets the right to vote in a referendum and the right to sign this petition like every other Albertan. When there's a municipal or provincial or federal election, how many votes do First Nations people get? 1. Fine. Okay, no problem. So we're good so far, right? All right. Well, if the vote is yes on October 19th to become independent, then what happens? The Supreme Court of Canada said you have to go into binding good faith negotiations. Well, who did I say we would do that with? The federal government, the provincial governments, and the First Nations from Treaty 6, 7, and 8, because all of Alberta is covered by treaty, whereby the First Nations surrendered, transferred, assigned forever into the future all of whatever rights they might have in the lands in return to the Crown, to the government of Canada. In 1930, the 1930s transfer agreement that was transferred to Alberta in return for a number of important things, which I believe should be honored. The right to hunt and trap and travel across the lands in their traditional territories without hindrance, the right to build trappers' cabins, the right to education, the right to healthcare, and on it goes. So if there's a successful vote on October 19th, each individual First Nation as a community, as a bloodline, as a tribe, will have to make a decision. And one of the decisions they can make is that they will stay part of Canada, that their reserve, their little tiny reserve, because remember, all of the reserves in Alberta combined are 1.3% of the land base. That's it.
Right.
So people who think this is treaty land, yes, that means you no longer own it. Okay. Yeah. It means it was your land, not your land now. You have traditional rights over the land to travel and hunt and everything, and that's fine. But all you got is your reserve. The reserve itself is owned by Ottawa. It's not even owned by the First Nations. Why they put up with that? I don't know. It's so weird. So weird, these chiefs. And then, so what can happen is their first option, let's say the Sturgeon Lake Cree, because they seem to be the loudest here, they can say, we don't want anything to change. We want Ottawa to continue to own our reserve, and we want Ottawa to continue to administer our rights under the Indian Act, and we want Ottawa to continue to administer our rights under the treaty. We go, okay, no deal, no problem, fine, deal.
Yep.
What harm have they suffered? None, right? Yeah. And did you know that there was a treaty signed in the 1700s? Because we've had this people are like, oh yeah, but the land around them is going to change. Yeah, that's what happened in 1930 with the Natural Resources Transfer Agreement. All of the Crown land in Alberta, all of the mines and minerals, all of the waters in Alberta from Confederation forward were owned by the federal government. And that was a cause of grievance and led to Western separatist sentiment in the 1920s. Why is it that Ontario owns its minerals and Quebec owns its minerals and water and lands, but Alberta doesn't? Why is it all federal government? How come there's not Alberta public lands and only federal Crown lands? So the 1930s transfer agreement led to the transfer of all the mines and minerals, all the water, rights in water, and unoccupied Crown land from the federal government to the Alberta government. There's the federal Crown, there's the provincial Crown, okay? And one of the things they had to deal with in the 1930s Natural Resources Transfer Agreement was ensuring the federal government needed to ensure that the Alberta government would continue to administer and respect the treaties. So we already have an example of doing this. And it's a constitutional document, by the way. It's just not some agreement in somebody's filing cabinet. It's one of the suites of documents that form our constitutional framework. So we have an example from 1930, how the ownership and jurisdiction of the land around the reserve can change, but the First Nations rights remain completely intact. Interestingly, in the 1700s, as the 49th parallel was being developed, there were First Nations that traveled between Canada and the United States. To this day, many First Nations in Alberta don't need a passport to cross the border in the United States. All they got to do is show their treaty card, because there's this treaty, and don't quote me on the year, it might be 1795, around there. And I can't remember the name of the treaty off the top of my head, but I recently tweeted about this because I was reading it. And it allows First Nations from the US to travel to reserves in Canada, and Canadians cannot ask them for a passport. And it allows Canadian First Nations to travel across the US border to First Nations reserves in the United States. So all we would do is replicate that system. So if a First Nation decides after a referendum that they don't want anything to change, they love the housing that Ottawa provides. Oh, and the water, it's just awesome. Like, it's so many different colors. It's like a rainbow at times. It's great. I'm being sarcastic, obviously. But they could say, yeah, no, we just love Ottawa. They're great to us. We love them controlling all of our lives, and we want to carry on. And if that's what this First Nations that are doing this legal challenge want to do, so be it. No one's telling them they have to change anything. The other option they'd have is to say, you know, actually, we're not so thrilled with Ottawa. They don't have a very good track record over a couple 100 years now. We've been patient, but they actually haven't delivered very well. We'd like to actually keep the treaty as is and just have it administered by Edmonton at the new government of the new country of Alberta. A third option that other reserves would have, and each one of them gets to make their decision. I don't make the decision. You don't make the decision. The courts doesn't make the decision. The people on the First Nation reserve get to make the decision, as it should be, will be to say, you know what? You know, it was 1890 something, 1880 something for these treaties. Yeah, we'd like to negotiate a more modern arrangement with the new country of Alberta. So those will be the three choices that they have. Their choices. Everybody who's critical on this, including former Premier Kenney, assumes that something will be imposed on them. The only people talking about imposing anything on the First Nations are a few of these high-profile vocal activist chiefs, and then the Forever Canada emotional types. No one else is saying we're going to impose anything on First Nations. No credible voice I've heard. My view is that it was an agreement that was entered into, and it needs to be respected. People enter into agreements all the time, and people also agree to modify agreements with both sides consenting. So if they if they want to propose an amendment to the relationship, I think we should be open to discussing it. But this court challenge is just crazy nonsense. Can't believe it's gone this far. But it's real, and we have courts that are behaving in very unpredictable manner, as we've all witnessed over the last several years. So there is a possibility. There's a hearing on April 7th.
Okay.
And the First Nations are seeking an injunction. And it is possible that that injunction will be granted. I'd like to think the possibility is low, but I have long given up post-COVID predicting what the courts will do, because they don't seem to follow the law. They seem to follow politics too often. And I say that with tremendous reservation, because it disappoints me as a lawyer to see what's happened to our courts with their politicization. I don't think it's what was ever envisioned. So if what Mitch Sylvester and his group have astutely decided to do is to treat the first opportunity of the court granting an injunction as a potential stop date for the referendum, or for the signature gathering process under the petition, and get the signatures in, get them to, like, you know, when they draw the Super Lotto and the Lotto Max or whatever on Saturday night, you know, and they announce the numbers. It's always an accounting firm that's there to verify the processes and that these were the numbers that were picked, right? There's lots of other things where accounting firms are brought in to verify, you know, even like the Academy Awards, there's an account of that verifies it's accounting firm. There's a process now in place whereby all those sheets will go to an accounting firm. They will follow the same verification process that Elections Alberta has publicized it used on the Lukasik one, even though, of course, there was no requirement to ask anybody for identification in Lukasik.
Right.
But there is for this one, which is fine. We want each signature to be a real Albertan voter. And then that accounting firm can prepare a report, confidential report, that will lock in and document where we're at that stage, so that if the courts try to interfere with the democratic process of people signing a petition, if the courts attempt to interfere with the democratic process of Albertans signing a petition, it'll be open to Mitch Sylvester to present that report signed by the accounting firm to the premier to demonstrate that the threshold was met, to clear the way politically for the government to be responsive to the political will of Albertans and not be interfered with by a bizarre court process and not have the democratic process interfered with. So that's the plan. If it turns out the second time that the court could issue it would be the end of the following week of April.
Okay.
And if the court doesn't grant an injunction, which I certainly hope is what will happen, but it's possible they will grant the injunction. But if they don't, then we can keep rocking and rolling and get as many signatures as possible. So I think it was a smart move on Mitch's part to take a cautious approach, a risk-averse approach, and say, let's pretend the 7th is the cutoff. Let's get as many signatures in so we get over the threshold. Let's document it before we turn those sheets into Elections Alberta, because Elections Alberta might just sit on them and say, no, we got a court order, so we're not counting them. And I think that's their play, and no one would ever know. And we'd be saying, well, surely we're over the mark. And the premier would go, well, I don't know. Well, this way we go, yeah, no, here's a certified report from an accounting firm that followed the same verification processes as Elections Alberta and confirmed we're over the mark. So let's get on with our referendum on October 19th. And remember, too, you know, you got to thank Tommy Lukasik and his hair. Like, what a great job going out there. And he told people that if you signed, it would block a referendum. And the actual thing they signed was calling for a referendum on whether Alberta should stay or leave Canada, like right there. And so he passed the threshold, give him credit for that, you know, with the help of all the unions and the union organizers. And so now the premier's already obligated to hold a question in November on whether or not Alberta should stay or leave. And once we get through this Stay Free Alberta process, she's going to have a second petition compelling her government to hold it. And then they'll have to the government will carefully craft the question. And then we'll all go vote on October 19th.
There you go. There you go. Great answer.
And you answered all my questions I had. So that was awesome. Thanks, Keith.
So keep in mind now, this one I'm going to bring in a few here that again, guys, Keith is all knowing and as omnipotent as he is. He may not have the answers to all of these, but
or the lottery numbers.
Well, he is the most Albertan lawyer in the world, but let's see what he knows about this stuff. Karina coming into the $5 super. What happens to Canada student loans? I have it from Alberta and Canada. I'm a full-time student, so worried about that.
Well, I could give a funny answer, but I'll give a serious one.
Okay.
How's Canada going to come and get you if you're in the free nation state of Alberta? But what's going to need to happen here, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. It's not public right now, but there's a lot of detailed work being done by very knowledgeable and expert people in their respective fields on a detailed transition plan for how to deal with each step of independence and the day after. So, you know, one of the questions that comes up is this one. And so as part of the term sheet and proposal to the federal government, We would include an arrangement from the new government of Alberta and the government of Canada as to how those student loans would be addressed. Either there would be an adjusting entry where the student would pay both the Alberta component and the federal component to Alberta, and the Alberta government would pay out their loan to the federal government, or some kind of other adjusting entry. Similarly, one of the questions that's come up with lots of people I know in agriculture is what would happen with their farm credit FCC loans on their farmlands in Alberta, and what can happen there. And these details still need to be finalized, but we have Alberta Financial Services Corporation that provides parallel services, and those loans could become assigned to AFSC, and the payment terms just continue. So the Alberta government would backstop those loans with the third largest reserves of oil in the world, which are, somewhat in demand now and forever, to understate it. So, what's really interesting about all of these questions, and they got to keep coming, because every one of them's a legitimate question. Every one of them's a legitimate question. But what's really fascinating about this opportunity that's in front of us is, and just bear with me for a minute here, I want to peel back the curtain on something. Some of you may remember during the Iran-Iraq war, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld was at the Pentagon, and he was at the podium, and he said something to the effect of, there are known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns, right? And that's the fact of life. We got things we know, I know I have a meeting tomorrow at 2, but I don't know what whether it's going to be snowing or raining at 2 tomorrow, right? Like, so there's a known known and a known unknown, right? It's also unknown unknowns, things I don't know if a plane's going to fall out of the sky and hit my truck. However, if you look at all of the things that you do in a day in Alberta, all of the things that you achieve or need to have done to live a happy and successful week or month in Alberta, if you look to see who's delivering that service, it's going to be your municipalities, and then mostly your provincial government, and then a little bit of things that the federal government does. How often do you go to a passport office?
Every 5 years, 10 now.
Often drive on the road in front of your house, right? Yeah. So what's interesting is every single thing that the government of Alberta in a new country will need to take over is already being done by the federal government. And we know how to do it. It's not secret, right? So for example, we will need to run a passport office. So we can offer to acquire from the government of Canada First Edmonton Place on Jasper Avenue and the equivalent building in Calgary, both of which have passport making machines. And we can say, we will purchase these from you. Oh, and by the way, all of your staff can stay on, for a transitional period. Instead of getting paid, instead of when they open up their bank account online, instead of saying deposit government of Canada, it'll say deposit government of Alberta, right? And we will continue to issue passports. Hopefully we'll be able to make some reforms to the system to do it way more efficiently than the federal government does. So every single thing that Alberta needs to take over from the federal government is already known and is already being delivered. The only question is, are we going to be able to do it better? That's it. Yeah. So whether it's student loans, whether it's farm credit loans, whether, whatever aspect of it is, we're still going to have trademarks and copyright and intellectual property. We'll just have them administered by a trademark office in Edmonton or Calgary rather than Ottawa. So all of the different things that we need to transition from getting out from underneath this abusive relationship with the thugs and the ideological extremists in Ottawa who keep holding us back and making life less affordable and less free, we can do and do better.
Absolutely. I want to highlight this one because I think we kind of answered it earlier, but Wendy became a member for 4 months. Thank you for joining the Patriots Club. But I love how she states it. Please ask Governor Wilson. If we don't answer every question, can Elections Canada throw out the vote? I think we have the answer to that, but it's going to answer a question I have. Well, with the way that Wendy stated this, Governor Wilson, I've said a million times over, I know, Keith, we've talked about this in private. I'm going to put you on the spot on the channel just because it's fun to embarrass. But, you know, if we ever need a leader in this position, I know you've talked about wanting to be a part of the transitional phase or the negotiation phase, but, you know, out of all the people that have presented themselves in a public space, many people, including the thousands of viewers on this channel, when we ask them, who do you think should take up the reins as a leader when it comes to the Republic of Alberta, Keith Wilson is the #1 name that pops up in that in that discussion. And I know you've said you have no interest in that realm, but is there any way that enough people could stand in front of you and beg and plead to maybe get you to change your mind?
No.
No. Well, you
Keith,
can't.
I'm gonna throw it out there real quick. You're my #2 choice. My #1 sadly just passed last weekend. Rest in peace, Chuck Norris. So you were definitely up on
Well, yeah, story about Chuck for sure. So I would say this though, that each time I put my mind to what's in front of Alberta. And by that, I mean, we're coming to a really big fork in the road on October 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't exercise this option, the future for our children and grandchildren is very grim. We've seen the job losses. We've seen the job creators leaving. We all know of them. We've seen the lost investment, and it's based on an ideology, an ideological extremists in Ottawa, and incompetence mixed in with corruption. And that's not going to change. They're just going to keep doing it. And it's just going to keep getting less and less affordable. We're probably going to continue to see very significant inflation. And the crime, the drug abuse, you know, people, I think a lot of the reason when I'm in a downtown city and I see the drug addicts at levels I've never seen them before, I look at some of these guys and I say to myself, you know, I wonder if 12 years ago they were working up in Fort McMurray in camp, you know, making 140 grand a year and driving a brand new truck that they lifted and put some fat tires on it and all that stuff, right? And now they got nothing. So the fentanyl becomes their friend. There's just such despair. And, you know, our kids, our adult children aren't having children. No one's affording homes. This is just going to get worse. And the uncertainty and the chaos that this government has been creating, you compare that with the other option, which is that by every practical measure, Albertans will be better off in an independent country by every single measure. Looking at it objectively, there's not a single one, not a single one. That's why when these forever Canadian emotional types, somebody wrote me a really long letter and I actually read it because I was trying to find one reason why I was wrong. And it was all emotion. It was emotion. Orange man bad, Trump. It was just ridiculous. So the reality is, you know, why I keep doing this is because it's easy. It's easy because it's obvious and it's true. It's obvious that for Albertans to have a successful future for themselves, for their neighbors, for their communities, for their kids, for their grandkids, is for Albertans to vote for independence. The steps we have to take to do the actual transition are, none of them are Rumsfeldian unknown unknowns. They're mostly known knowns. And all we have, the measure of success is, can we run these services more efficiently and better than the federal government has been? I'll take that challenge any day. We're going to save costs right off the bat because we don't have to do everything in 2 languages. You know, you're right there. Just the savings right there. And so the reason I'm doing this is because I think it's the right thing to do. And if I can, through my voice and my experience and my training, help people see what I see, then then I've done a good thing, and that's what I'm going to keep doing.
Good. Okay. Amazing. Almost spoken like, I don't know, a leader. I'm going to keep saying it. I don't care. It's
gonna stick at this point.
I gotta highlight Dutchie, even though it's not a question. This will still be going to our vets. Dutchie, thank you so much. Thank you to you, Keith, and all that you were doing to lead the charge for our chance for independence. In my opinion, you all will be the new founding fathers on a new and free Republic of Alberta. I couldn't agree more. The people that are giving their time to this, the people that are traveling the province to educate those, I can't thank everybody enough. Much like the Freedom Convoy, I think people are going to owe an insurmountable, unpayable debt to you, Keith, and everybody else for everything that they're doing. Rob Hildebrandt comes in with a $10 question. I heard, or maybe speculation, I heard the judge hearing the Chiefs' complaints in April donated to the Liberal Party. If it's true, what can you do if the judge is a conflict of interest? Now, I've also heard that this is the same judge that was in December. I think this is all speculation, or is there anything definitive in that lines, Keith? Or,
well, I'm not going to comment on the specific judge, but I will say this. I learned, and I've been practicing law now for over 30 years. And in the first couple of years, I was at a big firm, and I noticed that some of the partners who really wanted to be judges would go to the Liberal Party events. Yeah. And some of the partners who really wanted to become judges would donate to the Liberal Party. So it's just kind of like obvious that if you want, because they decide. The decision to be appointed to the superior courts, the federal court, the Federal Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court of Canada are all made by the Prime Minister or through the Minister of Justice. So it's an open, not even an open secret. It's just a thing. If you're a lawyer and you want to come within the radar and sight lines of the power brokers in Ottawa that decide who gets to be the judges, you better donate.
Mm-hmm.
Just grease your way up there.
Grease your way up the wheels. Peter comes in to say, just wanted to say thanks to Keith for all the work and for coming on the show. Amazing. You guys are so great. JD asks, would the U.S. administration risk diplomatic ties with Canada to back a sovereign Alberta, even if it comes down to an ultimatum?
That's a good question.
Okay. Trump does not like Mr. Carney. Trump and the Trump administration don't like what, you have this whole Western Hemisphere doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine, but also how Trump's morphed it. And you have their new national security strategy that they released several months ago now. Mm-hmm. And they're all focused on Fortress North America in particular. The United States have two main adversaries in the world. One is Russia and the other is China. Who are they more afraid of in terms of military capability? Russia or China? China. China has a larger navy than the United States now. And they're building ships at a rate that the Americans can't. They're building 1,000 ships a year and the Americans are building 30. And that's not something you can change overnight. So, and one of the reasons that the Americans went into Venezuela was because of the growing influence of China in Venezuela, right? And so for right on the heels of that, and right after Ford runs a Ronald Reagan manipulated and edited ad of Ronald Reagan during Super Bowl, spent $150 million saturating the swing states, antagonizing Trump, the largest economy in the world, our closest neighbor geographically and culturally.
Yep.
When other countries from around the world are going there on bent knee to do deals to get some access to their market. And Carney goes and does a deal with China? Wow. You talk about piss the Americans off?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. And for Carney on multiple occasions to go before a podium and say that our relationship with the United States is over, the largest country in the world economically, the most powerful military in the world that we depend on for our national security and safety, and to say that that relationship is over? Remarkable. No wonder there was 100,000 job losses last month. No wonder companies are leaving Canada. These guys are out of control, man.
Yeah.
They're reckless, right? And so Trump, what was the question? Trump fearing repercussions from Carney or something?
Yeah,
Well,
it's would we risk diplomatic ties?
Yeah, so what, are they going to all stand at the border and throw tampons at the Americans?
Well, I think it was in regards to diplomatic ties between us and Canada, if they back the sovereign Alberta.
But no, fair enough. Sorry, my outrage is only I still can't believe what Carney did and continues to do.
Yeah.
So the question is this: well, what's Canada going to do? We're not going to talk to you anymore, America? Are they going to say, well, when we need you to scramble fighter jets because ours don't fly, we're not going to let you do it?
I think they'll be off the Christmas card list. I think that's how.
Yeah, like that's about it. Christmas cards, and then I can't see anything else. The power imbalance is profound. The market opportunity we have, even with tariffs and other things, is still the envy of the world. Every other country would love to be Canada, to have this huge border with all that population and market. Such a short distance. Everybody, I can drive to the border in 6 hours from here, right? And far less for most other Canadians. So, no, I am not concerned about that at all. I'm more concerned that the Americans are too enthusiastic about Alberta and Saskatchewan becoming independent. And if they just need to sit back and let us do our thing and let the democratic and the legal processes run their course up here, I don't think the Americans are worried that there is any way that the
kind of blowback or anything.
Ottawa can retaliate.
Yeah.
We're not going to send our 6 tanks to the war games in NATO next year. And it's like, well, good, because they were broken down most of the time anyway. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but not much, on how bad our military is. And that's because it's been underfunded by Liberals for so long. So no, I'm not concerned about that. And there's another point I was going to make on this whole recognition thing. We would still have a bilateral relationship with the rest of Canada, and we could enter into a new bilateral relationship with the United States. The Americans, Ontario's in trouble. We know that people in Ontario, if you say to them, what's the biggest contributor to the Canadian economy? And there's a lot, I'm generalizing, but I've just met so many people in the, well, it's obvious to them. It's the auto sector. The auto sector to them is the big, and you go, canola exports are worth more, significantly more than the auto sector. And then, you got the auto sector, you got canola, and then you got oil and gas, like literally off the frame, right? Yeah. So they're just there was one I read, somebody came after me the other day and they said, you guys just leave, just separate. We don't care. We don't need your oil. He was from Ontario. And I was just like, okay, have you ever heard of Line 5? You do understand that your oil and gas comes from Alberta down through the U.S., under the Great Lakes, and then up through Sarnia, and then up to refineries there, and that supply fuel to Pearson, and onward up into Quebec. Like, you do understand this, right?
Yeah.
If we ever turned the tap off up here, you guys would be in so much trouble. Like,
what is it, 4 days for Vancouver?
Outright ignorance towards the contribution that Alberta provides to sustaining modern life in Ontario. The dismissiveness. We saw that with Polyev on Rogan. I was stunned. at how dismissive and belittling he was to people in support of independence in Alberta. So I am not worried at all that the Americans will be dissuaded because there's something Carney could do to the Trump administration, the United States. No, I'm not concerned about that. And my bigger concern is that I hope the Americans just let the democratic and legal processes play out in Canada.
Good.
Nice.
I think we partially answered this one earlier, I think, but what steps do you think should happen after Alberta wins a referendum for separation? Is there anything you want to add to that one, Keith?
Well, I think what will happen is that in advance of the 19th of October, there'll be work behind the scenes to prepare a proposal for Ottawa that will detail, the terms of separation, the divorce settlement, so to speak, what Alberta will pay for the 5 national parks. Some people are like, well, it's federal. Yeah, but it's within the boundaries of Alberta. Like these guys, I'm like, okay, get a map and just take your finger and go around the edges for the border of Alberta. Okay, what's inside it? Oh, 5 national parks. The land within the national park is owned by the federal government. All right, we will pay them fair value for that land. What else is in Alberta? 4 military bases. Alberta has more military bases than any other province, and Alberta has the largest military bases of all military bases in Canada, by the way. So we would pay them for that. I don't think we should, subject to what you say, Mike, I don't think we should take the equipment, though, because I don't think we're antique collectors. We're probably better off to buy new stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, we would put a value on these things. We would indicate what we think we're owed by the federal government for our contribution to the CCP, the Canadian Pension Plan, and other adjustments, and have that ready to go so that we can enter into immediate negotiations on, let's say the vote will be on the 19th. It'll probably take 2 days to count because it'll be paper ballots and inspected by eyeballs and not computers that can be hacked, which is a good thing. So on the 21st, the premier will have 2 choices. She'll either have to lead the negotiations or decide that she's not prepared to do that, in which case she'd have to resign. The reason I say that is because the Supreme Court of Canada decision was clear that when a clear majority of the voters of a province vote on a clear question for independence, that province and all the other provinces in the federal government and the impacted First Nations will enter into good faith negotiations. It didn't say unless the premier doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Like that's not in there. So the premier will have a choice. And I certainly hope it's to lead us into these negotiations, which the term sheet can be prepared ahead of time. Same with a term sheet for the Americans, for Washington, so that there can be simultaneous announcements saying, okay, we're now heading towards independence. Here's our proposed settling up with Canada for what Canada owes us and we owe Canada. And here's our proposed new trade arrangement and bilateral arrangement. And same thing with the United States. So everybody will have immediate certainty. And I think those negotiations to take, they're actually pretty, I was talking to somebody today who's involved in something very, very complicated project. And we agreed that the project he was involved in was actually more complicated than the term sheet for this. Like it, and the reason is everything's knowable. The passport offices, the administration of the prisons will offer all the border guards at Coots and the border crossings and the guys at the airports, say, look, you're going to carry on as of this date. You'll become an employee of the government of Alberta. You will carry on at your exact same job. You'll have your same title. We're getting new business cards printed. It's just going to be the same business cards. It's going to have an Alberta flag on. And we're going to get you new uniforms because we're going to put Alberta flags on them instead of Canadian flags. You know what? Here's an example. You guys remember Shaw and Rogers?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right? TELUS. We used to have 3. We used to have TELUS, Shaw, and Rogers. And some guy would show up at your house if you had Shaw for your internet or whatever, and he'd have a little shirt on that said Shaw. And you have a van in the driveway that said Shaw, right? And he had a business card that said Shaw. And then Shaw got bought out by Rogers. That guy didn't die. He didn't lose his job. He got a new van that was red. And he got a new shirt that was red that says Rogers on it, a new business card. And instead of getting paid by Shaw, when he looked at his online banking, it said Rogers.
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? That's essentially what will change for anybody who's currently working for the federal government that's delivering a service that Alberta will need to take over on a transitional period. Same with all the laws. We can immediately adopt all the federal laws. So the criminal code, the trademark legislation, the bankruptcy legislation, those few things that the federal government regulates, because almost everything's provincial or municipal. And we can say for a transitional period, these are all the laws of Alberta now. And we can start systematically reviewing them. One of the laws we could change is the gun registry. One of the laws we could immediately change because of the date is we can announce that we're no longer going to seize people's personal property in the name of firearms because they happen to have a black stock on their gun. So
wonderful.
All of this is actually, so I keep coming back to why I'm doing it. It just makes sense. It's not scary. It seems scary when you don't know the answers to these questions. And so I respect that. And we've got to work really hard to pull the curtain back, demystify, clear the smoke, so people can see it clear-eyed and go, yeah, this is going to be pretty smooth, actually. And holy smokes. So $47 billion a year isn't going to be spent by all these other places? Oh, wait a minute. We're not going to have Bill C-69 anymore, and we're actually going to be able to build industry, build resource development. Wow. Okay. We're not going to be burdened by the government in Ottawa sacrificing our industry to protect the auto industry in a relationship with the United States. China, when China wanted to get the attention of Ottawa to open up EV access, what they did was they went after canola producers, right? Well, if this same thing were to happen 5 years from now under an independent Alberta, there'd be absolutely zero benefit of leverage for China to go after canola producers because we don't sell or export cars, right? So, the size and structure of Canada, I've said, I honestly believe it's too big for optimal performance of provinces. It's too big. It's too big and too diverse. Alberta's economy is fundamentally different than Ontario's. The culture of Albertans is different than the culture of people from Ontario. I've lived in both places. It's so different. It's remarkable. And our trade is north-south. They try to trade east-west. Our roots are with Texas and the cattle drive. That was our founding citizens when Alberta was formed in the 1880s and up through 1905. So to me, it just makes no sense by any measure for Alberta to stay in as under the confines of Confederation. We should become independent. We will be able to achieve our economic potential. If you look at the size of our reserves, third largest reserve of oil, there's a chart that Rise of Alberta put out. And this is like what my fingers are showing is the ratio of citizens to oil reserves in Kuwait. And then the next one is like a little higher and it's Saudi Arabia and then whatever. On the same scale, Alberta's like this. It just dwarfs it. In other words, per capita, we have way more oil than any of the countries that have oil and have no income tax. All these countries have sufficient oil to population that they don't have income tax. Alberta completely thumps them. We have like 5 times the ratio than they do. And somebody said to me, so you're talking about nationalizing the oil and gas industry, eh? And I actually thought about that for a minute. You know what's unique is, are you guys too young to remember the old TV show, The Beverly Hillbillies?
Nope. Yeah, I remember it.
I got it.
Jed Clampett went out with his gun and he shot a squirrel, and then there was oil, black crude oil, the jingle at the start of the TV series.
Yep.
And then him and grandma and everybody loaded up from Oklahoma and they drove to Beverly Hills, right? Well, why were they able to do that? Because in Oklahoma, if there's oil on your land, who owns the oil under it? You do, right? In Texas, if there's oil under your land, who owns it?
You do.
You do. If you're in Ontario and there's oil under the land, who owns it? You do. Okay, well, how the hell did Alberta end up with all the oil? And it was because I can go way deeper than anybody would want me to. I researched the heck out of this in law school. It was Order in Council 1070 from 1889, and it was a recognition. It might have been 1898, somewhere around there. It was a recognition that we were settling the West and we needed coal for the trains. So the government made the decision to start reserving coal and mines and minerals from the titles and transferring them to the king. So in Alberta, when you look at a land title, it says this is the description of land you own. And it goes reserving unto His Majesty the King all mines and minerals and the right to work the same. So from before Alberta was even a province, the government had reserved the property right in the oil and gas under the land. So along comes the 1930s Natural Resource Transfer Agreement, transfers all that oil and gas, water, and unoccupied crown land to the provincial government. So we have this unique situation where the Alberta government already owns the oil and gas. What we do is we hire oil companies under royalty agreements to drill wells and put in pipelines and pay us a percentage of the take, pay the government the percentage of the take. So we're already there. These, I'm just like,
drill, baby, drill.
They're just a lack of knowledge of Canadians about the fiscal realities, the governmental realities, how their lights come on, how they get their gasoline, who owns what. You know, they always, oh, it's crown land, it's federal land. I'm like, no, there's a federal crown and a provincial crown. All of this is provincial land. So it makes sense by every measure for Alberta to become independent. We will be so prosperous. We will not have these ideological extremists in Ottawa constantly telling us what to do, importantly, telling us what we can't do, and then us begging for permission. Oh, may I have an MOU, please? Just a little one.
We're out of toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's I'm going to fire some quick ones at you here, Keith, because I know we can't keep you here all night. 77 Just Jack says, can we sue the Chiefs for frivolously use of the court? I'm assuming he's talking about class action.
No, the court can award costs, but they won't.
Yeah.
So how you do
frivolous
lawsuits is the courts will award court costs against the favoring party. But
too easy.
All right. Gerald says, Keith, I've talked to a lot of seniors. Will the CPP and old age security go up, and will the GPS be gone?
What's GPS?
I'm not sure. It could have been a misspell.
Government pension.
Okay.
Government pension, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
All right. I've thought of different ways to explain this. So you have those buses at the airport that take you out to the parking lot. Those little, get on those little buses. It's got a van. You know what I'm talking about? Little buses at the airport that run you out to the parking lot, right? And so imagine there's two of them. And one of them is the Canadian pension plan. And the one behind it is the Alberta pension plan. And the one, if you're old and gray haired, you're taking money out of the plan. And if you're young and a hipster, you're putting money into the plan. The Canadian pension plan is the equivalent of, and let's say there's 20 seats on the bus. There's 17 people with gray hair and 3 young guys. Okay. The Alberta pension plan has got 4 people with gray hair and 16 young guys. Whose pension plan do you want to be in?
Exactly.
Which bus are you getting on if you're worried about your pension?
Yeah.
And
makes
one
sense.
of the reasons the federal government continues to delay despite Premier Smith's repeated requests, even threatening to take them to court, to say what the share of the Canadian pension plan is Alberta's, is because it will be so shocking. Albertans have the youngest demographic in Canada of working age people. Albertans have the highest per capita income of people in Canada. Albertans are the largest net contributors to the Canadian pension plan. There is very, very serious concern about the sustainability of the Canadian pension plan because it is so out of whack, okay? If Alberta, the safest thing that could happen to your pension, if you're on CCP and you're in Alberta, the absolute safest thing that could possibly happen to your pension is for Alberta to become independent and take over that pension plan.
Absolutely.
Your amount you'll have to pay in will go down. This has been studied. I'm not the first one to say this. There's been numerous studies on this. The amount that you'll have to pay as a working person into the pension plan will go down, and the amount of money that you'll get as a retiree will go up, and the amount of money you'll get when you get to retirement age will go up despite you paying less. Because remember those two buses. The Canadian pension plan has been that handy bus in the front full of old people and only a few workers. And the Alberta pension plan has been the one with a couple of old people full of workers.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Guys, I'm going to cut off the questions because we're going to try and, otherwise they'll keep popping in. I've got a few extras for you here, Keith. Steve Jensen asked, the feds have jurisdiction over federal parks like Banff, but the land is part of Alberta, which says the Crown. Would Ottawa instantly lose jurisdiction? I think I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you take that one ahead.
Well, okay. I'm assuming everybody here is driven through a national park, right?
Yep.
Did you notice that the speed limit signs were the same color as all the other speed limit signs in Alberta? Have you ever got a speeding ticket going through a park? Even though it might be either the RCMP or park warden that pulls you over, it'll say violation of the Traffic Safety Act, right? So all the provincial laws apply within a national park. The only difference is the ownership of the land is federal government, and they have additional rules under the Parks Act. Everything else is the same of every other part of Alberta because it's within Alberta. That's why the Traffic Safety Act applies when you drive through a national park. So, Alberta will offer a fair price for the national parks, and Alberta will offer a fair price for a few of the government buildings and for the army bases. And it'll be part of the negotiation. The federal government will owe a huge amount of money to Alberta for the pension plan. That's not in dispute. The exact amount is. We'll put our number on the table. And in law, you can do this thing called set off. So Derek, if you and I were in a dispute and I said you owed me $500 and you said, yeah, but you owe me $400, you could give me $100 and then we're square. Okay. It's called set off. It's an established legal doctrine. Research it. We'd be in a similar position with the federal government. If they don't want to accept our, we're in a position of strength. These things are capable of putting a value on them, and we can put a reasonable and fair offer in front of the government, and hopefully they'll enter into good faith negotiations. And if they don't enter into good faith negotiations, we already know what the Supreme Court of Canada said is likely to happen, which is the province will declare independence.
Yeah.
Good answer.
What else we got?
I think we partially answered this one earlier. If the reserves stay within Canada, are they then still Canadians, or would they still be Albertans in the new country? Asked Teresa.
Canadians.
That's what I figured.
Okay.
If that's what they decide. If they decide nothing changes, then they're Canadians. They'd be
This one-
Canadians, but they would have the right.
This is an
to travel
important one.
freely.
This is an important one here. This I've heard people ask me this multiple times, and I've seen those groups on Facebook losing it about this. You're gonna lose your teams.
I'm assuming this is the same as what we were talking about with the Rogers and Shaw thing. It's how about the hockey teams, NHL? Just curious. Anything on that one, Keith?
How stupid. Really? Like, that's all they got? That's all they got. So how many countries does the NHL operate in right now?
2.
Oh my God, but it would be impossible to operate in 3. You know, it's like,
yeah, I don't see it going anywhere.
It's a nonsense.
The Olympic hockey team.
What is an NHL franchise all about? What's an NHL franchise all about? Tell me.
Oh, making money.
Money. Okay, so when Alberta becomes independent and we're no longer constrained in developing and taking to market the 3rd largest reserve of oil and gas in the world, when we're no longer constrained in our ability to grow and develop our beef industry and grow that, and our forestry and our mining and all of our other sectors, our high-tech industries in every area, which citizens of which province are going to have more disposable income to spend on going to hockey games? Right on.
I don't know.
Come on. Somebody contacted me. This is a really good one. And a lot of these things are actually fair. I just getting sort of exhausted with some of the questions, but every one of them is a fair question. There is no reason why the NHL cannot continue to operate. It's harder for them they got to speak a different language. They'll be speaking English in Alberta, so they'll be fine. But another one someone raised with me is the railways, and they provide an excellent example. A lady wrote to me that her husband and his colleagues who work for CN are really concerned about independence and what it might mean for them. So you've all heard of CP, Canadian Pacific, CP Rail. And you may be aware, or you may not, that CP Rail several years ago merged with Kansas City. So now when you look at the trains, it says CPKC. All right. Well, CPKC has rail networks in Canada, United States, in Mexico. So, Derek, if you're working down in their track out of St. Louis, you'll be getting paid by, say, Canadian Pacific, Kansas City Rail, American affiliate company. And if you're down in Mexico working for the rail down there driving train, you'll be getting paid by their Mexican affiliate. And if you're in Canada, you get paid by their Canadian affiliate. And when Alberta becomes an independent country, CPKC will now be operating instead of 3 countries, 4. And if you happen to be working on their rail lines in Toronto, you'll get paid by their Canadian affiliate. And if you happen to be working on the rail lines in Strathcona or here in Edmonton, you'll be getting paid by their Alberta affiliate. Like, this is
a lot of people.
This is basic stuff. But on its face, people get overwhelmed. Oh, by the way, guess where the head office is for KC or Canadian Pacific Kansas City Rail?
I believe it's in Alberta, isn't it?
It's Calgary. So, and this is another difference with Quebec, right? People say, oh, these businesses left. Well, the businesses that left were financial services and other things. The businesses that are here can't leave because they produce stuff here, and their plants are here, and the raw materials here, and the shipping networks are here, and the skilled workers are here. So they're not going anywhere. Our bigger challenge is going to be all the investment that wants to come in, because we will have removed Bill C-69. We'll have removed the emissions cap. We'll have removed the methane rules. We'll have removed all of the things of these 9 bad laws that are still in place, despite some statements from the provincial government suggesting otherwise. And the investment that we've lost will return. I'm very confident we'll be able to enter in a much more favorable bilateral trade agreement with the United States than Ontario and Doug Ford are going to be able to get after pissing off Trump and the entire Trump administration and Carney as well. So our challenge is going to be the influx of investment, not an outflow.
Right. Sounds good. Steve Jensen asked this one. Is the court case going to be streamed or can we make that happen? The $10 super chat. No. Do you know about that, Keith? I know sometimes they make it public. I don't think they'll be doing that with this one.
Not in Alberta.
Not in Alberta. There we go. I think
I
that's
highly doubt it. I mean, somebody'd have to ask special permission. Maybe somebody's done that. I don't know, but it is possible.
We'll get highlights maybe
where they'll stream it, but you need special permission from the judge.
There you go. Little Weasel asked with the $5 super chat. When Alberta becomes independent, we will need a new constitution. Is there any place the people of Alberta can submit ideas for the new constitution? I know we've talked about a constitutional convention. Is there any anywhere aside from that people can get their ideas in or their input, Keith?
Well, I think we need to do all of these things quickly. And what I mean by that is there are these people suggesting that after independence, you're going to be dragged out in negotiations with the federal government for 2 years. I don't see that at all. I see as long as we have a term sheet ready to go, the premier and her team can go into those negotiations, can lay the terms out as to what our proposal is. Then there's no need for this to be a long drawn out negotiation at all. And I think it can be done fairly quickly. But what I think we need to do is get us on the other side, get us to independence, roll all the existing laws in as is for a temporary transitional basis, and then start reviewing those laws, the functional laws, the criminal code, and other legislation, and making it more efficient and more reflective of our values, and get rid of these crazy woke lefty ideology things that are all permeating through the federal laws, and hold a constitutional convention so that the Albertans can participate in the development of our constitution. I think Alberta should become a republic. We don't need to be a commonwealth. The Commonwealth is dwindling in power as we see the collapse of the UK with their spiral of dystopia and economic troubles. So that's what I would envision. I don't think we should get wrapped up, it's kind of like, I guess, when you move your house, you get the house, you move into it, and then you start dealing with the details. I think that's how we should do it. We should get out of this mess we're in, free ourselves, cut up the credit card that these idiots are using in Ottawa and so recklessly spending, and then plot forward on these other things. That's what I would recommend.
Great. I got 4 more questions for you, Keith. Connor asks, what would the new citizenship process look like for independent supporters outside of Alberta? So I'm assuming it's like if people wanted to move to Alberta after the vote happens.
Well, that's something we're going to have to deal with, right? So I don't know the answer. I do know that to vote in an election in Alberta, those rules have been around for a long time. You have to be a Canadian citizen, you have to be 18 years of age or older, and you have to be normally resident in Alberta. So if you're, like we see these people signing down in California and Phoenix and Mexico and Florida, well, they're ordinarily resident here, and they are they're ordinary resident here, and they just happen to be vacationing or snowbirding, right? So anybody who's ordinarily resident. So if someone moves to Alberta and moves here with their family, just let's say for October 1st, and they're now working here and living here and have a house here or have renting, well, then their ordinary residence would be Alberta, and they could vote in the referendum on the 19th.
Okay. I think what they're asking is post-referendum vote if it was successful.
And I don't know the answer.
That's
there's
okay.
Some things I've given a lot of thought to, and there's some things I haven't yet.
I'm assuming it would be no different than other countries. It would just be based on the rules that we decide through the process. But we'll leave that up to, again, what happens once that happens. Teresa asked with the $5 super chat, will there be somebody from Stay Free Alberta watching over the counting of the votes during the referendum process?
I don't know that, but I expect what you're going to see is something like that occur, where there'll be a mechanism for scrutineers to ensure that whatever the vote is, that people feel it's a legitimate vote. I think that would be very important. I would expect that that's going to occur.
Gerald asks, will the carbon tax be gone to lower fuel costs? Yes, as far as I'm concerned. If we became independent, carbon tax or the industrial carbon tax is gone. All those taxes are gone.
Look what's happening in the world, right? And this whole idea that, you know, the world is demanding, you know, decarbonized oil. It's like asking for dewaterized water.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't, you know, the top part of this water glass here, that's dewaterized water.
There you go.
Dewaterized water. And Derek, just for you, I will put this into a jar, this dewaterized water, and only $100. Anybody else, $500, but just for you, this dewaterized water, man, I gotcha. Just
now you're talking about my values. That's
exactly. Think of the savings.
Decarbonized oil.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's what the world wants? No. The world wants the people who live in their real lives, unlike Carney, who jet sets around the world. Oh, breaking news. Did you hear that the Prime Minister's office announced that Prime Minister Carney will be visiting Canada for 2 days next week?
Oh, good. Oh, the temporary foreign prime minister.
Visiting somewhere far away, but
foreign prime minister.
He only visits here a couple of times. Anyway, my serious point is that the world wants efficient, low-cost oil. They want gasoline that will run in their vehicles. They want natural gas that they can cook on, that they can heat their homes with, and that they can run their power plants on. You know, when you travel to third world countries or other developing nations, and you see that their power plant is on a barge in the harbor, and you can smell the bunker oil burning because that's what they're burning, and the power's not on all the time. They don't go, you know, honey, as the power's out again, do you know what we really need more of on this island is decarbonized oil? I'm quite concerned about that.
Exactly.
Have you checked the level of decarbonization?
So the market's not demanding it. I think those that say the market's demanding it are not properly assessing the situation. And I don't think we need these ridiculous things that add cost and impact the profits. They impact the taxes that companies could pay to help fund services because they have to pay less because they're paying these ridiculous taxes. Like some of the quantification that's going on for what the costs are of the new emissions cap for methane and the industrial carbon tax, they're talking $15, $20 a barrel. And for some companies, when the oil's at $55 a barrel, there's no profit in them to drill a well, right? Like, and that's Carney's dream. I really believe he wants this energy to stay in the ground. He's still the Mark Carney of the Book of Values. He still has his radical eco wing out of Quebec within his cabinet, within his caucus, driving the agenda. They don't like Alberta. They're dismissive of Alberta. They don't take us seriously because they don't have to. No matter what they do to us, we'll just work harder. No matter how much they take from us, we'll just give. But on October 19th, people have a choice.
They do. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Hellbilly Deluxe, I think we answered this one earlier. Canadian Air Force members offered Alberta Air Force positions. I'm guessing it's the same as what we were talking about with border.
No, it's armed forces.
Armed forces. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just asking if there'd be a transition. At the end of the day, they're federal employees. Chances are they would just get transferred back out east. We'd have to build their own force. Hopefully we do it like most of the, Slavic countries, in countries like Norway and Denmark and Finland, and that we do a strong militia base and we build our army from there at the end of the day.
Kimberly, if
we're going to need I don't think, and I'm not an expert in this area and I defer to Mike and others, but I don't think we're going to need a 1 million man army.
No, I think for me, this is one thing I always touch on, and for me, I would love to see to create a more harmonious society like they have in countries like Switzerland and Finland. I would love to see a conscription. I would love to see people who are 18 join for 2 years, similar like the Israel model. You know, they do a trade, they do something like that. In the event where they can't serve, I'd like to see there like be a secondary force where it's like a public service kind of option for those who are unfit. That way you still get a uniform, you still get part of a team. And then we do like Switzerland. Every year in Switzerland, your boss has to give you time off to go to the range to requalify for your weapons handling drills. Every house is armed. Greenland's the same thing. When you're 18, you're issued a weapon, and it's part of the Militia Act. To me, you know, that way everyone serves, everyone gets fit, everybody builds something, and then everybody always has something that they can almost like, you know, break the ice over with somebody else. And this is one thing where I think to build a truly harmonious, you know, values driven society, if everyone serves, you're all on the same team. I mean, it builds the best nations.
Does indeed. Kim asks a good question but I think, again, Keith, you partially answered this about people who move here prior. A lot of people have voiced to me their concern that, much like in Quebec in the 90s, there's going to be an influx of Eastern voters, we'll say, or what are we, temporary foreign voters that may be influxing into Alberta to try and tip the vote, so to speak, when it comes time to do so. But Kim asks, how would the mass immigration that's taking place currently affect our vote on October 19th?
It won't, because you have to be a Canadian citizen to vote.
Okay.
So the only way, I've tried to game that out too. I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. So I looked at all the steps that the government would have to do and all the implications of changing the federal citizenship rules. And the ripple effect they would cause for themselves would be pretty profound. But as it stands right now, only a Canadian citizen, 18 years of age or greater, ordinary resident of Alberta, can vote in a provincial election or a referendum, full stop. So this idea of flooding actually doesn't work.
Okay, this one kind of snuck in at the end, and I'm just going to ask because it's more of an opinion by the looks of it. Chris asks, has there been any thought to veterans' benefits from combat injuries? Are we keeping the new veterans charter system, or is there talk about treating people properly? I'm not talking about military pensions, talking about war benefits. I would think that with the billions of dollars that we're keeping, if we were to form our own republic, and again, using our oil to back what we're doing, I'm assuming we could afford to look after our military better than Canada currently does.
Yeah. I mean, we have, when it comes to I myself am currently on a very small military pension for a blown knee. It's $26 a month. So actually it went up to $32 a month, but with an injury I sustained during the war. But at the end of the day, when it comes to our benefits, you served as part of the Canadian Armed Forces. You are entitled to your Veterans Affairs, your Canadian pension, your Canadian benefits, all that stuff. It doesn't matter where you're at. If the future government of Alberta would like to honor that stuff and create a better system, because right now I can tell you horror stories I could do podcast after podcast of just the terrible situation that we're having right now with the current state of Veterans Affairs and the fights and the appeals you have to go through and the denials and having to go see another doctor. And it's a constant fight for everything from tinnitus to knee issues to back issues to PTSD, you name it. And now, again, the reason I went from someone that was all pro Canada 100% to someone that's now seeking Alberta independence, one of the big come to Jesus moments, as I like to call it, was when they started offering Canadian veterans Maid instead of the proper help that they required. That was if you're going to do that to the best of society, the ones that gave everything, then I mean, your country means nothing at this point. So hopefully at the end of the day, we got to do better. And like I said, depending on what happens in the future and what kind of terms we agree on. But right now, like I said, it's a Canada thing. And from there, we'll probably, like I said, if we create something new, a new benefit system, I mean, that's to be ironed out in the works.
My comment would be that I really think the federal Liberals are schizophrenic when it comes to the military. And what I mean by that is, in the same way that Central Canada Liberals find the idea that Albertans use guns as tools and for hobby and sport, and they find the notion of citizens having guns reprehensible. I also think they have that same kind of strange feeling towards the military, that they really don't, they think in their ideal utopian leftist world, there shouldn't be conflict and we can get rid of oppression. And so you don't really need militaries, and guys with guns is bad and tanks and bombs is bad. So that's why I think they're schizophrenic on it. Like they go through these ebbs and flows where they say they're going to fund it, but they don't. And they just seem to have way more empathy for immigrants than they do for soldiers.
Well, right now they're bringing them all in to be soldiers. That's the other thing.
There you go. There's that aspect too.
And when it comes, you're right when it comes to that stuff. And then when it comes to the military stuff, one thing people ask all the time, they're like, "What's the Alberta Army going to look like? What's the situation?" We currently, and this is a kind of a geopolitical stuff, we are currently in a new renaissance when it comes to military. The war in Ukraine has shown this, that everything now is drones and tactics have completely changed. So the old days of how many tank battalions you have and how many jet fighters and all that stuff, all that's changing right now with the introduction of drone warfare. So it would actually give us the opportunity to, if you wanted to create a fighting force or a very successful military, to now implement these completely new tactics, these completely new technologies to build a truly modern fighting force that doesn't revolve around old doctrine.
Yeah.
Someone was asking in the chat about Aish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the simple reality is, when you have $47 billion not having to go to Ottawa for them to spend recklessly, it increases the capacity of the new Alberta government and the new country of Alberta to help those who need it the most. When you unleash the economic power of the third largest reserve of oil, it increases the capacity of the government to help those who need it the most. And when you bring on the economic activity and the job growth and the job creation and the demand for workers, I anticipate that there'll be enough diversity in that demand where there'll be people who currently aren't working to be able to be accommodated within jobs, so they can work as well. So it's the exact opposite of any threat to Aish. Independence is a way for Albertans to even care at a greater level and provide at a greater level than we have in the past.
Yeah. So I want to bring up what's happening this Sunday. Keith, you're going to be in Morinville for an Alberta Independence meeting featuring Mitch Sylvester at the Community Culture Center in Morinville. That's at 9502 100th Avenue. Petition signing, folks. If you haven't signed the petition yet, there is no way to sign online. Signing with Alberta Prosperity Project prior to January did not mean that you've signed the petition. You actually have to go and sign in pen with identification. Petition signings from 6 till 10 p.m. Speakers start at 7 p.m. I'm going to be there. I know others are going to be there. It's going to be an amazing event.
I'll be there too. I'll be in town.
Mike will be there as well. I believe there's room, they said, for up to 600 people. I could be wrong on that. I think that's what I was told. Make sure to go check out Keith there. I'd be remiss if I didn't take the time to mention Keith Wilson's YouTube channel over at Keith Wilson KC, constitutional lawyer, on YouTube. Go and follow Keith on YouTube. He has, if you think the discussion tonight has been incredible, Keith has unbelievable updates, very informative talks about Alberta independence. And again, I couldn't be happier to promote Keith even more than we already do on this channel, because the work that is done by Keith, again, and those who are like Stay Free Alberta, Jeff Rath, all those people running all over the province right now to educate everybody on how important, how critical this last push for signatures is, as well as the vote itself. Keith, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming by tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to stick around because I don't even know what the likes are at, but we are going to do a giveaway of one of our black and gold Alberta t-shirts tonight. The North, or I think it says the North stands free on the back.
The North stands free, yeah.
North stands free. Alberta Pin gave us this design. It's an amazing shirt. If you guys want to support our vets even further, again, all of our shirt sales until the end of signing period, I'm donating all proceeds towards our veterans. So if you want to hit the shop link, it does help support us on the channel, but I will be giving one of these away to one of our lucky viewers, so stick around. But with that, Keith, I want to thank you once again for coming by and sitting with us on the Fringe. We'll definitely have to have you back. I think our viewers found this very informative. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, definitely enlightening, answered a lot of questions, even the ones I had. Thank you very much. Thanks again for all the hard work. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, sir. And wonderful interview.
Thanks, guys. And if you know someone who hasn't signed, please encourage them to sign. I know some people have expressed some reservations about signing because they're worried their privacy and they'll somehow get trolled or doxxed. Everybody who is a canvasser has to be registered with Elections Alberta. They have to follow code of conduct, and they sign a non-disclosure agreement, binding legal agreement. There's a whole chain of custody process that goes to team captains for each of the constituency ridings that are Stay Free Alberta people. They sign non-disclosure agreements. In other words, anybody who touches that petition and sees your signature in your name is bound by extensive confidentiality provisions. The names are never made public by anyone at any stage, even after the vote. So no one will know you've signed. There's lots of different locations that you can go to that are discreet. Just go to Stay Free Alberta's website. They have a great setup there where you can pick your town. And that's in addition to pop-ups that occur everywhere. There's people that will come to you if you have a mobility issue or just whatever, you'd feel comfortable someone coming to your door and signing at your home or where you stay. Or if you want to get people together and have a signing party at one of the hockey, it's the Oilers are playing or something, you're having a bunch of buddies over, contact a canvasser and see how many signatures you can have them get it as they're having beers and eating popcorn and watching the hockey game. Do stuff like that. It's really important that we get this number as high as we possibly can, and then educate your friends and neighbors and try and answer their questions and let them know that there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes so that a clear transition plan will be laid out in the coming months that will answer everyone's questions. This is absolutely doable. This is a remarkable opportunity for us to regain our sanity and our hope and our future for our kids and our neighbors. So thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. I think we're going to have to make a shirt out of this, Keith. Keith Kong. I think I like that.
Mountains.
I think we'll have to do something with that. But Keith, thank you as always for coming on. I can't wait to see what you're doing in Morinville on Sunday. Keep up the good work. And again, thank you for all you're doing.
Have a great night, guys. Thanks for your kind
You
words.
as well.
Thank you.
Take care.
That was awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That was awesome.
Absolutely amazing. Listen, I keep saying he's the most Albertan lawyer in the world for a reason. This guy knows his stuff. I'm so grateful to call Keith a friend. He
crushed it. He went through so much stuff. And I mean, a lot of the questions that I get asked, he went through, and the stuff you get asked, like, it was crazy.
I know, ladies and gentlemen, that get upset that we only looked at the super chat questions. Again, this was all being donated to our vets. So I tried to do it this way so that anybody who wanted to ask had the ability to support our veterans and ask. So this isn't some kind of liberal cash grab scheme or anything like that. But I do have a few here that people threw in at the end that I want to get to real quick, Mike, because one of them is military related.
Yeah, for sure.
Allie sent a $2. What will happen to migrants on work permit if we vote for independence? We've talked about this before. I don't know if it was Mitch or somebody within Stay Free Alberta or Jeff or whoever said it, but somebody said once Alberta gets through the process of becoming independent, they would have to reapply under Alberta because they're in a new country. Again, Keith's time, he was already here for almost 2 hours. I didn't want to keep him any longer.
Yeah, when it comes to that, essentially, because the transition process it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take probably years, 2 years, something like that. Yeah, they'll get a notice saying, "Hey, you need to reapply," and then it'll just go from there.
Brexit did the same thing. It was a couple of years. Chris came in and said, "Wouldn't it be an Alberta thing also, since there's Afghanistan vets fought for Alberta as well? That's kind of like thanks for coming out, but no thanks." This is when we were talking about So I'm guessing just refer to what we were talking about earlier.
I saw another one. LL Cool G, he brought a similar one. 20-year veteran here in VAC benefits for life, regardless where you are globally. If I move to the U.S., I'm grandfathered as Canadian veteran, receive VAC benefits. No worries there. Absolutely. LL Cool G's 100% right on this. At the end of the day, your veteran benefits will follow you depending what it is. If it's a pension for life, it's a pension for life. You served as part of the Canadian Armed Forces. Therefore, any injuries you sustain, physical, mental, yada yada yada, is Canada's problem. They need to then compensate you. If Alberta creates a military and somebody gets hurt in the line of duty, it'll be Alberta's position to help that individual. Similar situation.
Absolutely. Ali with $5 super chat. What happens to self-employed, pro-independence, pro-West, anti-Islam, tax-paying migrants on work permit like me? Again, I'm assuming the same thing as we said.
Front of the line. You
can go to the front of the line, but you'll have to reapply. I'm sure if you're patriotic, you'll get to stay. Big shout out to the Alberta Pin. Thank you for the $10 super as well. You guys have been absolutely incredible tonight. If you're in the stream and you haven't hit the sub button yet, please hit the subscribe button. Hit a like down below, the thumbs up button below the video. YouTube has just crushed our viewership in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if it's bringing out C9 early or what's going on, but our videos, I'm not complaining. I'm just kind of stating so people understand. Our videos used to have about a 24-hour life cycle, so they would be released and they'd steadily get views throughout the day, and then they'd die off by the next day like most news does. Now our videos seem to have about an hour and a half to 3 hour life cycle, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like somebody pulls the plug out of them and they just stop. So I'm not sure what's going on with YouTube, but I'm not going to complain because we're not the only content creators on the platform experiencing this. I've seen other big channels that have seen a massive dip in their viewership. I don't know if we chalk it up to fatigue or if it's just chalked up to YouTube shenanigans, but something's going on and it just doesn't smell right to me.
Guys,
Nilak,
share the show, get it out there. Let's beat the YouTube algorithm. Share it on your socials, share it with your friends, send it to grandma. Let's get this done.
Well, and just for an FYI, I'll probably be chopping up some of the questions and segments to put out as videos throughout the week, so people who don't watch the live streams can get in the information. So if you did watch this live stream, make sure just put the video on in the background and play the noise in the background. Helps the channel out, helps push it out, and then others who weren't in this live stream can get that information. So if you're asking yourself, how can I help Alberta independence? Right there is how you do it. Just put the video on, put it on mute, play it through. It helps the channel. Nilak, $10 super chat. Got here late, just caught up, but wanted to make a chat and donate to the vets. Great show, guys. Keith was great. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the 29th. I concur. Thank you so much, sir. You guys have been great. I saw Dutchie ask earlier. We got 974 likes, almost 1,000, but I'm not denying the giveaway tonight. Yeah, Dutchie was saying, is this finally the shirts I donated for? We gave 2 of them away the other night. We're going to do another one tonight. Let me pull out the old Wheel of Fortuitousness and let's get a random winner drawn up here.
Do 1,000 for me. How was that? And like I said, share the show with all your forever Canadian people that you know at work.
Oh, Cindy, see, I don't know about the hype button. I don't know how it works, but Cindy Melnick says you have to hype the video at the end. From other channels have said the same. I'm not sure how the hype button works, but if you have the option to hype it when you're leaving a comment, however it works, make sure to hype the channel. Apparently that helps with YouTube. I don't know why they put all these silly things in here. Anyways, let's get to the giveaway, shall we? Let's get to the giveaway.
There we go. 1,000 likes. There we go. We did it.
1,000 likes. Well, we're there. Either guys, you hung in there while we were taking donations for the vets. Viewership was amazing tonight. So yes, absolutely. We'll do a giveaway tonight. What do we got here? Sorry, it's loading. It's loading. Randy B. Randy B. He's got, looks like a Frankenberry emoji.
Oh, I've seen him
under his name. Randy B. Is Randy B still in the stream?
There he is.
There it is. There. Oh, hang on. It popped as soon as he was here. Randy B is here. Congratulations. You're tonight's winner. Somebody says it's in the comment section. Swipe right to hype. There you go. So when you're in the comment section, folks, swipe right, hype the video. Really helps. Alberta Pin says, whoever you choose, we will match it and send them a hat. Okay. So, congratulations, Randy B. You've won a hat from Alberta Pin as well. That's amazing. Look at Dutchy coming in, $70 super sticker. Dutchy, you're the man. Thank you, sir.
Crazy.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
After this week's beating, I definitely appreciate it. Let's so Randy B, you've won our black and gold Alberta t-shirt with the North Stands free. Head over to unacceptableFringeYT@gmail.com. Got to throw it in here. Unacceptablefringeyt@gmail.com. Send me the color you want, the size you want of the t-shirt. Remember, it's not hoodies. We're not, rich over here. Pick the color and size that you want, along with your shipping information, your full address. I need a phone number because the shipping company likes to get in touch with you if they can't deliver it in person when they come. I'll delete the phone number afterwards. I will also pass your shipping information on to Mike, who will get it to Alberta Pin, and we'll get that hat sent out to you as well. I want to thank everybody who make sure also within 24 hours you do so, or else I have to redraw. Guys, amazing show tonight. I want to thank Mike, first of all, for coming in, and thank him for his service, ladies and gentlemen, as another vet. I'm always grateful to what Mike has done for this country, what he does for this show. He works all day long, and then he comes here on the Forge to hang out every Monday, even when he's exhausted. So thank you to Mike.
Doing it from a hotel room in Grand Prairie right now, and next week as well.
There you go. So thank you to Mike for being here, as well as Keith Wilson for coming in, chatting with you guys. Hopefully a lot of your questions were answered. Maybe we'll try and get Keith on again before this all goes up. Or again, at some point I'll get over my issues of asking Mitch and Jeff to come on. I know they're busy, but maybe we'll get them on to answer some more questions at some point. Thank you to everybody who came out tonight, everybody who became a member on the channel. I think I missed one. Did I miss one? Mr. Calgary Gary became a member. Who else do we have? Will Morris, the $2 super chat. We got in the comment section, swipe right. I think we got them all.
I think we're caught up.
If I missed any, guys, I apologize. Everything was moving so quick tonight. Join us Wednesday, Unhinged Fringe with Matt. He's going to be jealous because the streams or the viewers were so high tonight. Join us Friday with Mrs. Fringe all week long. Video content dropping all week. If you're not notified, check the channel and watch the new content, folks. Support it. Help us in any way you can. We need it more than ever right now. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. From Mike and myself, have yourselves a wonderful evening, folks. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.